So, welcome students. This is actually Parkinson's disease. Was its theory was discussed in last class. Okay, and other diseases which are mentioned here. Other diseases, uh, that is Wilson's, Huntington's, and Alzheimer's. I'll go with briefly inside about this, and Parkinson's. I will do something like a recap. Okay. Now, let me go with the Huntington's first. So, how many of you know what is Huntington disease? Little. So, some people call this as Huntington's
Huntington's
chorea,
chorea.
but it is
Dance.
not just chorea. It is not just, you should always know that Huntington disease is not just chorea, it is more than that. So, the better would be to call it as a disease. Okay. It's not just chorea. In fact, the chorea of Huntington's is self-limiting. Huh? And it will be followed by other things later. Okay, that's the reason it is better called as Huntington's disease. Hmm? Huntington disease. Now, these are all genetic diseases. So it is by autosomal dominant with high penetration. How many of what is high penetration? What does it mean? How many of you know what is penetration? Huh? See, these are dominant diseases now. They have got a penetration. See the gene which is dominant will manifest. It will manifest, and its manifestation it is full. Then the penetration is high. If the manifestation is weak, then penetration will be less. Okay, that's the reason we call it as with high penetration. This disease has got a high penetration. And one thing, onset is the people with Huntington disease. The disease onsets in this age group as 25 to 45 years. But I think so. Most of you have seen Sydenham chorea. How many of you have seen Sydenham chorea? Huh? Tell me. How many of you seen Sydenham chorea? Otherwise also called as rheumatic chorea. Rheumatic chorea. See this rheumatic chorea now. It will present with uh, hold on, somebody must have come. Okay. Rheumatic chorea, it is a self-limiting disease. You got acute rheumatic fever. How many of you know acute is acute rheumatic fever? What is acute rheumatic fever? Hmm? You don't know what is acute rheumatic fever? Students, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Some of you given something message here. Rheumatic. Okay, Manjunath Gowda said it's rheumatic chorea. Okay,
Modified
Sydenham
gene.
chorea is also called as rheumatic chorea. Huh? Uh, so acute rheumatic fever, na, there is after the it is post streptococcal infection leads to autoimmune disease. Okay, autoimmune disease. This autoimmune disease, if it manifests with the arthritis, okay, then many features are there. It is also called carditis, also called as pancarditis. All the three layers of the heart are involved. Okay, but there can be a CNS manifestation which manifests 3 to 4 months after post streptococcal infection. After post streptococcal infection, this can manifest. That is called as Sydenham chorea. Sydenham chorea. So this is self-limiting disease. That happens much earlier. This acute rheumatic fever occurs between age group of 5 to 15 years. So this is acute rheumatic fever. I'm not talking about chronic rheumatic fever. Chronic rheumatic fever is a later on it comes. Few years later, after acute rheumatic fever, you can get a chronic rheumatic fever. That comes later on. The acute rheumatic fever occurs earlier. And rheumatic chorea is with acute rheumatic fever, not with chronic rheumatic fever. Okay. And Huntington's chorea is a autosomal dominant, and it presents in the age group of 25 to 45 years. And in the Asians and Africans it is rare, but North Americans, Europeans, this Huntington disease is not uncommon. Hmm? Not uncommon. Okay, it is possible. It is more commonly seen there. And this Huntington's disease, initially it presents with chorea, but which is self-limiting. Maybe down the line of 5 to 10 years, the chorea may disappear and it will be replaced with dystonia, rigidity, bradykinesia, myoclonus. You see, this bradykinesia and rigidity. Where do you get this? What is this?
Parkinson's.
Bradykinesia? Huh? Yeah, Parkinson. See,
Parkinsonism.
these all these things now. There is extra pyramidal system. Hmm? These extra pyramidal systems, I'll just briefly put it extra pyramidal system here. Okay, this is the midline. You just imagine midline here. Inside the midline, these are thalamuses. Okay, I'm putting a coronal section. This is what is this? Anybody? And here, this is lateral ventricle. Okay, lateral ventricle. Posteriorly, I put cutting the brain vertically, lateral ventricle. Here you get a caudate nucleus which comes like this. This is putamen. I'm showing putamen here. This is
Global.
globus pallidus. Okay, caudate nucleus comes like this. This is thalamus. See, and you have got a subthalamic nucleus here. And substantia nigra, which is there in the midbrain. Okay. Okay. See, imagine this. See, what is this? This is subthalamic nucleus. These are thalamuses. Okay. This is putamen. This is lentiform nucleus, and this is caudate nucleus. This caudate nucleus comes like this, and it ends here. Caudate nucleus with the swelling here that is called amygdala. Amygdala will come here. Okay, this is something about basal ganglia, what I told you. Caudate nucleus along with this putamen. It's called as what? What I'm writing, you read tell na? Neostriatum.
Neo.
Yeah. And caudate nucleus with complete lentiform nucleus is called corpus striatum. Okay. This globus pallidus is again subdivided into globus pallidus interna, globus pallidus externa. Okay, did you understand, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is lateral ventricles. Caudate nucleus forms this is some inferior border here. Caudate comes here. Caudate nucleus is here. Okay, head of the caudate nucleus is here, and this is lentiform triangular thing is lentiform nucleus, and it is again divided into outside thing as putamen, and inside part is globus pallidus. Globus pallidus again divided into interna and externa. Okay, caudate nucleus with putamen is called neostriatum, and caudate nucleus with the lentiform nucleus is called corpus striatum. And basal ganglia in modern terms is what all? It doesn't include amygdala. Amygdala comes in limbic system. So amygdala, which is the tail end of caudate nucleus, it is associated with the limbic system, not with basal ganglia. Okay, you should know that. So the modern or the clinical basal ganglia is caudate nucleus, lentiform nucleus, then subthalamic nucleus, then substantia nigra, which is in the midbrain. So these are all forms the clinical basal ganglia, these things. Okay, you should know. And these are basically the extrapyramidal system. The extrapyramidal system is concerned with the initiation of movement. I have discussed about direct path and indirect path in the last class. where you learn how the agonists and agonists and antagonists uh, are programmed to make a movement. So if the agonists are contracting, the antagonist should relax. This sort of a programs is it is there inside the uh, this basal ganglia. This direct path will work on agonist, indirect path will work on antagonist. Thus the movement happens. The body posture. So extrapyramidal system is concerned with what all? Initiation of the movement. Although motor cortex thinks of moving, but it is initiated or booted, what you call in computer language, booting you call now, booting or whatever. It gets started from the basal ganglia. So what happens is the, I'll go in very brief. This is a, suppose this is a cortex. From the cortex, premotor cortex, you'll think of moving your limb and pick up a T. That information is sent to what? It is sent to the basal ganglia, especially to neostriatum. It is sent to neostriatum. That is to the putamen and caudate nucleus. It is sent. From here, the signals are sent to globus pallidus and globus pallidus interna and globus pallidus externa, two parts. But direct, for the direct pathway, the which is works on agonist muscles, the impulse is sent to globus pallidus interna. For indirect pathway, which works on antagonist, the impulse is sent to from the putamen to globus pallidus externa. From the externa, it is sent to, and for a direct pathway, from the interna directly it is sent to what? Thalamus. From there, it back to what? Cortex. This circuit, this is a direct pathway. Whereas it comes to indirect pathway, the cortical impulse coming here will go to the putamen or the neostriatum, whatever you want to call now. From here, the globus pallidus externa. From globus pallidus externa, it will go to subthalamus. From the subthalamus, it will go back to interna. Then it goes back to the thalamus and back up. So that's how direct and antagonic pathway are present in the brain. You read about this direct and indirect pathway. It is important to understand extra pyramidal system. It is important. They can ask many questions on that. And if you understand this direct pathway and indirect pathway, you'll learn more about it. And when you read about diseases, now you'll come to know a given case, why it's looking like a Parkinson's bit, why it is looking like a Alzheimer's bit, why it is looking like a Huntington's bit, why a patient of Wilson's disease after some time will appear like a Parkinson's, or why it is appearing like a dystonia. All these diseases, they're not actually not fully different. Of course, just because the etiology is different, they go and hit a different organ. Later on, they know some other point. Then the clinical manifestations will differ initially, but later on, they get mixed up. So even Parkinsonism, we say it is a disease in the substantia nigra, basically. But actually, it involves the cortex also. It involves the other structures. So whatever the initially cardinal manifestations of rigidity, bradykinesia of Parkinson, I'm telling now, on tremors, which are there, they'll get mixed up with other features, other features of extrapyramidal system. They can start developing many complications. I'll discuss them briefly now, but in the last class, I'll go on more detail about it. You can see that video and learn more. Now we'll come back to Huntington's chorea. So I told you something. What about basal ganglia? Did you understand basal ganglia at least anatomy?
Yes, sir.
So basal ganglia is lentiform nucleus, caudate nucleus, subthalamic nucleus, substantia nigra. Corpus striatum is caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus. Neostriatum is caudate nucleus and putamen. Okay, this is basal ganglia. Now, so Huntington disease. So chorea is self-limiting initially. Later on, it becomes this. When this goes, it becomes this. That is because of destruction of other structures. It starts behaving differently. Initially, It will be chorea, it will disappear and form some other complication because of that. And apart from chorea, this disease does involve the rest of the neuronal tissues. Thus, it can cause gait disturbances, dysarthrias, oculomotor abnormalities. This is something which is very important, oculomotor abnormalities. Behavioral disturbances, cognitive impairment, and dementia also can come. So the patient of Huntington disease, the chorea which is there disappears, and later on this dementia and impairment, all these things will kill the patient actually. It is not that difficult to control chorea. They have got drugs now. Although we control chorea, the complications of the drug, side effects, they can form. When you try to control chorea a lot, you may get a secondary Parkinsonism. This is all known. So you get a drug to reduce the chorea, you will end up getting secondary Parkinsonism. That can happen. So they are all interrelated. So dysarthria, gait disturbance, oculomotor abnormalities, these are all part of Huntington disease. Now, these patients adequate calorie intake, but they can lose weight. And these Huntington chorea patients can develop non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, other endocrine diseases also. So that is something about Huntington disease and dementia and death. Genetic, yeah. Something very important about this is genetics about Huntington disease. They have got lot many questions on this. CAG repeats. In chromosome 4, the CAG repeats. CAG means these are triplet repeats. They are more actually. And with each generation, these repeats will increase from father to son. When it comes now, the repeats of this CAG will increase. When they reach this threshold more than 40%, Huntington disease will manifest. This is a CAG repeats. If they increase, then with each generation they go on increasing. The Huntington disease will start appearing in more and more younger age. For example, if the father had the Huntington disease at 45 years, due to increase in this CAG repeats in his son, he may get it as 40 years or 30 years like that. His son will get earlier, even earlier, and the disease course will be more worse. Because if it comes early, the complications are also more and the death will become more early. So that is something which is important with Huntington disease. Okay. So this is a drug which is commonly used, tetrabenazine. This is dopamine blocking agent. See, what is Parkinsonism is due to dopamine depletion. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now to reduce chorea, what is there in Parkinsonism? You got bradykinesia. Okay. So if you give a dopamine blocking drug, the chorea will disappear and this can come. Secondary Parkinsonism. So it has a side effect. Okay. These are dopamine blocking drugs are given here. So to reduce the chorea. But as a complication, you can get this. However, you can titrate with all the drug formulations, you can do it. But the other things that comes with Huntington disease or dementia, those things are not possible to be treated with this drug, and patient will succumb because of that. Dementia is the one thing which kills the patient. Okay. Other things also will kill him. Okay. Chorea can be controlled to a certain extent, or it itself will go and give the worst thing, dystonias. What is dystonia? It is a repetitive contraction of the muscles. Okay, repetitive. I'll come to that. There are some questions on the dystonias. For example, if you give metoclopramide for some individuals, they start behaving with the dystonias. You must have seen them making a torsion, like they make a torsion picture. They make their body into torsion, and that is dystonia. They can develop. From chorea, later on they can go into dystonia as a progression of the disease. That is actually hard to treat. Now that is in brief about Huntington's chorea. Now we'll go to the next commonly asked this disease is Wilson's disease. What is Wilson's disease? How many of you know what is Wilson's disease? Students?
It's due to
Correct.
improper copper metabolism, like in the something in the liver. It's not.
Yeah, the copper
Ceruloplasmin.
handling problem it is actually
Yeah.
basically copper handling problem. The copper is not handled properly, so the patients will develop copper accumulation in the body here and there and ending up with complications. That's it. Okay. Now, it is Wilson disease is autosomal recessive. Okay. It is autosomal recessive. It is a disorder of copper metabolism. Hmm? And this disease presents with neurological, psychiatric, and liver disease both. Here it involves all the three diseases it can come. 50% of the young people they develop with the liver disease, the rest will be neurological. So it can come 50-50. 50% will have liver and other things will have non-liver disease. The liver disease may not be prominent. The neurological manifestations can be prominent in a patient of Wilson's disease. So a patient may have almost like a normal, not clinically evident liver disease, but if you examine him, if you give a test, you may pick up a liver problem. But presentation could be to the neurologist rather than to the gastroenterologist. The patient may end up with the neurology clinic straight away without going to hepato or gastroenterology person, just because it can predominant manifestation can be only this. The liver disease could be subtle. Hmm? So a patient, that's why even without any evident liver disease, if you get a patient with tremor, bradykinesia, dystonia, again confusing you, what? With tremor, bradykinesia, rigidity, what you start thinking? Parkinson's, young patient presenting, there is young variety of Parkinson's also there. They'll come to that later. So that is Westphal variant. Now, see, you will have to think of Wilson's. So, movement disorder in the first decade of life. That's something. Less than 10 years. If you get a movement disorder, you think of Wilson's disease. That is basically a pediatric. Okay, we physicians will see after 12 years. We may not pick up it up. They will diagnose that case and give it to us later. Or they may be following it up for lot many time. Okay, less than 10 years, the patient who comes with movement disorder, that is all these things, dystonia, rigidity, bradykinesia, dysarthria, and all these things they present, think of Wilson's disease, with or without liver disease. Okay, and these patients can have depression, mood swings, and overt psychosis. That can be a manifestation. Now, this is something about Kerr-Fisher ring. There are two different scientists. This one here, they're different. They independently found this ring in the cornea here. You can see nicely. It is more prominent. It will not be so prominent. It can be subtle also. Here in this picture, for demonstration purpose, I picked a more very prominent Kerr-Fisher ring. This is not been so nicely seen. So it will be seen. One thing you should know: if the patient has got neurological manifestation, if KF ring is absent, then you can think it is not a case of Wilson's, because KF ring is virtually in all neurological patients. So patient having neurological manifestation and KF ring is absent, it is not case of Wilson's. Something like that, you can pick it up. Okay. And for even in liver disease, 80% of them will have KF ring. That is something very important clinical sign. And this happens because of copper is deposited into Descemet's membrane of the cornea. Then what is there in Wilson's disease is the low level of blood copper and ceruloplasmin. High levels in urinary bladder, urine. And but normal copper levels do not exclude diagnosis. Still it can be there. Brain will show the generalized brain atrophy and hypo-intensity of the caudate head. See, these are hypothalamus, globus pallidus, substantia nigra, and red nucleus. This is all extrapyramidal tract involvement. So that's the reason they present with dystonias, bradykinesia, and all those things because of that only. And penicillamine can be used to chelate it out, copper. So thus it can slow down the Wilson's disease to a certain extent. However, the disease will still progress. Next, I will discuss more about Alzheimer's disease when I come to MCQs. They'll be there MCQs. Henceforth, I'm starting now on the 2-3 slides. Alzheimer's disease is present in 10% of the people above 10 years. So in elderly people, Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. But as such dementia, what is most common? It is vascular one. But in Alzheimer's is this one. Alzheimer's is the commonest cause of dementia. See these patients, most of the Alzheimer's patients will present with memory impairment actually initially, and this will present later on progress to what? This will later on progress to language, later on go to visuospatial defects like apraxia. Can anybody tell me what is apraxia? And followed by this apraxia here. What is it? So usually the most of the patient will have initial presentation with the impairment, then language, then these people cannot dress themselves. They cannot dress, they cannot make do their routine things later on. So that's how this patient of dementia, Alzheimer's disease can progress. This can progress from the age from 10 years to 25 years. That is the range of the worsening of the disease. And females are more commonly affected with the Alzheimer's disease than the men. And 20% of them may initially present with these aphasias, word finding, organization, that is they cannot organize themselves, wear properly dresses, and now they cannot go to properly even to bathroom. They won't know how to go to bathroom. They may lose track in that, or they will go somewhere and get stuck there. This can happen. And even visual processing they can be there. This is in brief about Alzheimer's disease. I will discuss more when I come to MCQs. I have got slides on that there also. Now, how to pick up Alzheimer's in early stages? By using a PET scan. PET scan will reveal hypometabolism in the posterior temporoparietal cortex. Basically, the temporal lobe, the medial aspect of the temporal lobe is concerned with what? Memory. The medial aspect where you get your hippocampus, where you get limbic system, all that is concerned with the memory. And in Alzheimer's disease, this medial temporal lobe is the initial one to degenerate. That is the first, there is a degeneration there. Later on, it will progress to parietal lobe. Later on, next it will go to frontal lobe. Temporal, parietal, medial aspect will take up. Then it will involve the parietal lobe. So when it involves the parietal lobe, when it involves the rest of things, you start getting, when you see the temporal lobe, medial aspect is memory. Then lateral aspect you get aphasias, Broca's area, Wernicke's area, all these things. Then if you involve the parietal lobe, then you will end up with having what? Apraxias. All these things will come. So that's how it progresses. The disease also progresses like that, and the manifestation also progresses like this only. So just to remember. So I want to ask one question. Dominant parietal lobe is concerned with what? Language and what? Calculation. So mathematics, remember this. Mathematics and language are in the dominant lobe. Social science, geography, all these are there in the non-dominant lobe. You remember like this. It's easy. So geography means apraxia. Social science means emotions and all those things are there in the non-dominant lobe. Whereas the dominant lobe is concerned with maths and language. These two subjects are in the dominant. They're not exactly like that. Just to memorize it, I'm telling you. Dominant lobe, dominant parietal lobe or dominant or temporal lobe is concerned with the mathematics and language. That is calculation. Mathematics means. Language means aphasia I'm talking about here. Whereas non-dominant lobe is concerned with the geography means apraxia I'm talking about. Social science means relations, emotions, all those things. Yeah, that's it. Hmm? That is in how to remember. Now, if you do CSF, it will be normal in Alzheimer's disease, and this will be reduced. A beta 442. Then the tau protein, see, is the most favorite asking na. Phosphorylated tau protein is elevated in CSF. Okay, that's something finding here. So that is about little bit of theory. Then we will start with MCQs now. Okay, read this MCQ. A medical student now. He's a medical student. This medical student has presented to ED means what? ED means what?
Emergency department.
Good, very good, very good. You are alert. Huh? Medical student has presented with the ED and protected with the
Vomiting.
protracted vomiting. Sorry, yeah, protracted severe vomiting. For this, he was given something anti-emetic drug. So, following which he developed abnormal posturing. Which of the following is the most likely drug to be given to this patient? Now you tell me. So you got he has given anti-emetic drug. Okay. Now we'll find out which is not anti-emetic drug in this. Metoclopramide. It is anti-emetic.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it
Yes, sir.
anti-emetic?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Dexamethasone.
Yes, sir.
No,
Steroid.
Dexamethasone.
it's a steroid.
Steroids.
Steroid.
So this is out.
Hmm.
Okay. You're left with three choices.
Yes, sir.
Now, which of them is a choice more likely in these three?
Metoclopramide.
Yeah, I told you just now. You are alert. Any you may be knowing even without
It
that.
crosses blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, the metoclopramide is a drug which can manifest with the extrapyramidal symptoms. You must have seen many children coming like this. Now I can see this guy has got a dystonia. This is from Wikipedia. Okay, dystonia. It is a dystonia. So what is dystonia means? Sustained or repetitive. It is or. See here, sustained or repetitive muscle contraction resulting in twisting and repetitive movements or abnormal fixed postures. Okay, this guy probably has got an abnormal fixed posture. Now that is dystonia. Okay, drugs which can cause are plenty are there. Common one is chlorpromazine, metoclopramide. Then what is it? Promethazine. You can use you. Now so many drugs are there. And this will be. I'll put this in the classroom. Yeah, I told you why you join classroom and all that because of this. These all PowerPoints. Now sometimes I would have shared them in your Google class there. You can access there. Okay, that's why I told you join Google Classroom. Fine, because with attachment we'll put the class description will be there. Na? When you tag that YouTube video, I will even put this PowerPoint there, so you can read that PowerPoint whenever you want. That's the reason I'm asking you to join Google Classroom. You all have received the invitation. If not, you tell us. We'll send one more invitation. Okay. These are the about dystonias. The classification of dystonias. So classification is a regional blepharospasm is severe spasm of the eyelid and orbiculoris. What is that muscle? Ocularis muscle. Orbico. That muscle will contract. Severe spasm. And botulinum toxin is given to relieve that actually. And cervical dystonias. Suddenly patient will twist his head to one side or torticollis it can be. This can be very painful for the patient. Painful. Cranial. Here face and muscles with the neck, with torticollis, cervical, cranial. Oromandibular dystonia, that means the muscles of the mastication. Spasmodic or throat muscles. Throat muscles can go into dystonias. And tardive dystonia. Dystonias are our one favorite one I'm discussing. Proximal dystonias, they come and go. Torsion dystonia, this entire body can get twisted. This is very painful. And writer's cramp, last one. This is also type of dystonia. These are types of dystonias. You can see. Now, we'll come to what is correct about Parkinsonism. Read this. This question, those people who have not attended the last class, you may find it difficult to solve, but we'll solve one little by little and climb the hill. Okay. What is correct about Parkinsonism? Early initiation of therapy with the levodopa produces higher incidence of dyskinesias. So, if you give levodopa early, will it lead to dyskinesias? Is it true? How many of you think it is true?
So continued levodopa will predispose to dyskinesia, not initially.
What is it?
Like if the Parkinsonism has damaged like almost most of the part, that time it might lead to dyskinesia, not early initiation. I don't think it's correct. I'm not sure.
Early. Yeah, it is not that way. I'll come to that. I'll explain that. Actually, now the dyskinesias are actually secondary levodopa only. In the later part of the disease, when the demand of levodopa increases, you give a drug. There is a peaking of drug and falling of drug like this. Okay, when the drug peaks, now they can develop dyskinesia. Peaks, dyskinesia. They start moving here and there. When it falls, they get bradykinesia. This is called on phenomena, off phenomena. So this is when the drug dosage requirement is very high. With all your long-acting preparations, all that combination with carbidopa you would have given, with all tryouts of giving later stage, there will even on and off phenomena will start. And this on and off phenomena is not actually because of drug. It happens even without. Okay, I mean, the worsening will happen even. So if you give levodopa, start early dopa, or start early levodopa, it doesn't worsen the course of the disease. It progresses as it wants to, because Parkinsonism is a one part of the complete neurological involvement. Actually, Parkinsonism like picture can come in between. Actually, now I discussed about this in last class. The Parkinsonism in the spectrum here, it comes somewhere in the middle. Before that, the patient can have other complaints, gait and all that. Later on, they can have dementia here. Okay. These things. So Parkinsonism comes here somewhere in between. So if you see a patient from in this stage, you will call him as Parkinsonism. And if you say later, you'll call him as probably dementia. If you knew it, the diagnosis from the beginning, you'll take a proper diagnosis, Parkinsonism with the dementia. Otherwise, you may wrongly diagnose him as Alzheimer's, some other disease. You can do that mistake. These are all diseases, they're in a different way. Some disease will start here and go down. Some disease will start here and go up. Okay. It's not up and down actually. It is like in the space. It doesn't matter what is up and down. So if this is the Parkinsonism, will be here. This side there is a dementia. This side like that, the patient may progress like this. Or disease may start here. It can progress like this also. Okay. So the progression of the disease to dyskinesia is actually not because of levodopa, but levodopa can cause dyskinesia when the Cmax or the drug level in the body is more. Because of levodopa, this dyskinesia can happen. It is not because of that.
Where I can find a last class video, sir?
What?
Where I
It
can
is
find
there
it?
in the YouTube. It is there in the YouTube.
Okay, okay,
Huh?
thank you.
And I have tied that to in Google Classroom. Now in medicine, na, I have tied it.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Medicine, there are topics here. Then the Google Classroom, na. Yeah, if you have joined, otherwise you join now. Even on the YouTube channel, you can get it. In that, classwork is there. You go to Google Classroom, there is a section called classwork. Inside the classwork, for every subject, there is a topic. You click medicine, you'll get this Parkinson's the first part. And this will be added probably tomorrow, day after this one, I'll put it above that. Huh? Okay.
Thank you.
Like all subjects, it has been done. That's why I'm telling you people, you join Google Classroom also. Apart from live, you need definitely, once you have learned the class now, you can go with double speed for revision. Any YouTube video, na, you can choose your speed and revise it. That's why you join that class there. Okay. Early initiation of therapy with levodopa. This is not because of drug. Okay. Now, early therapy with the deep brain stimulation slows the progression. I have not discussed about TBS, the last class. I will tell you this about this. Deep brain stimulation. They'll stimulate this globus pallidus interna or subthalamic nucleus to reduce actually tremors, severe tremors which are not being controlled by this levodopa. They will try to do that actually. And even with giving, if you give more drug, patient may develop dyskinesia. The problem comes like this, on and off. I said, you give more drug, patient develop dyskinesia now. You give less drug, patient develop bradykinesia and tremor. Okay. Now the drug adjustment will not be possible. In such a patient, we give deep brain stimulation to the subthalamic or globus pallidus interna. Remember this interna word. Okay. DBS is given to reduce the tremors. But that apart from tremors, I told you, even there is a involvement of a autonomic nervous system, which can cause orthostatic hypotension. Then there can be cortical involvement according to dementia. It can cause. All these things will progress irrespective of it. DBS stimulation will not slow the disease progression. It will just give benefit for reduction of tremors. Okay. Tremors. How that is done, I have got some pictures on that. I'll show
I have
you.
a doubt, sir.
Yes.
So what did you say about orthostatic hypotension? Can you come over again? I didn't hear it.
Okay. I'll tell you. Orthostatic hypotension means if the person from supine position, if he stands or gets up, the BP actually falls down bit in everybody. Got it? But
Yes, that I got.
if the
Sir.
reflexes are good, your autonomic nervous system is good, if the volume of the blood is good, this will come back to normal within 1 minute. Okay. If it continue, if there is a fall is very steep, and if it doesn't come back normally within 1 minute, then we call it as orthostatic hypotension.
Sir, one second, sir. Sir, this, in Parkinsonism, there is a
Yeah.
defect in nigrostriatal pathway.
Yeah,
Dopamine.
Niagara striatal, very good. Tell me,
How there will be connection to autonomic nervous system? Sir?
That's why I was showing that diagram here. I showed here. There is a dementia here. There is a unknown element like a gate and all that. The Parkinsonism, it comes here. It will first involve striatonigral pathway. It not first actually. Before that, there will be other disturbances like gait, peripheral problems will be there. Dysarthria, all things can be there. They'll come here. Okay. Now maybe here or after here, the autonomic nervous system. This is a timeline. This is a timeline. Okay. I'm talking about timeline of Parkinsonism. So there can be autonomic nervous system involvement. It is actually another Lewy bodies. Okay. Lewy bodies are the pathology of Parkinsonism. These bodies can go on damaging many things. There's in fact a disease called a Lewy body disease only. It can go and involve autonomic nervous system. But of course, substance nigra, when it involves, you get Parkinsonism. If it involves predominantly autonomic nervous system, you will call it as Scheidegger syndrome. If it involves there is something called as a multi-system atrophy. That is called progressive supranuclear palsy. Okay, so many things. Multi-system atrophy means all the three presenting together. Multi-system atrophy. It is called. If the progressive supranuclear palsy means patient will have vertical gaze palsy with repeated falls will come, and they may even have pseudobulbar palsy along with that. What is pseudobulbar palsy? Can students tell me what is pseudobulbar palsy? Pseudobulbar. What is bulb? What is bulb? Bulb is brainstem, man. So bulbar palsy is an element type. See, this doesn't mean the patients of extracerebral system, these diseases don't involve cortical spinal tract. They can involve. When they involve cortical spinal tract, they can present with the pseudobulbar palsies. Pseudobulbar palsies they can present with. And here these patients will fall vertical gaze palsy and the repeated falls will present. And if they have associated rigidity, tremors, and bradykinesia, then it becomes a PSP with Parkinsonism. And if they have even Scheidegger's autonomic neuropathy, then PSP, Parkinsonism, Scheidegger, autonomic neuropathy, that is called as multi-system atrophy. Like that. And the PSP can even involve cerebellum. Cerebellum. So PSP with the cerebellum, they can come. See, all these combinations can happen. See, Lewy bodies, they don't only love your striatal fibers. They damage many more fibers. So depending upon which of the fibers are more involved, the manifestations will be different. They are called Lewy bodies. Problematic people here, Lewy bodies. Okay. Just go through my last class. I discussed more about it, and probably if that is not sufficient, you will have to read books also. And still you have got doubt, we'll see. Okay, you got my point? Students, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So that's why early therapy, deep brain stem, I told you about tremors. No, initial therapy with dopamine agonist controls symptoms in most patients. This looks sensible, na? You give dopamine agonist, that is what? Levodopa. Levodopa is dopamine agonist. Levodopa. See, actually, now, if you give dopamine, doesn't cross. If you see, you need dopamine there in the brain. IV or oral dopamine, if you give, it doesn't go to brain because dopamine here doesn't cross blood-brain barrier. To overcome that, the levodopa was invented. But the levodopa, the problem was peripherally it was catabolized. Okay, to prevent that, they got carbidopa, which actually prevents the peripheral catabolism of levodopa. So the peripheral catabolism is prevented, so it can go into the brain and give the benefit. So thus the activity or bioavailability at the site of was increased with the combination. So levodopa it will control the symptoms. That is correct actually. It looks nice, sensible. Let us go to last one. Let us not become. Initial therapy levodopa prevents the development of recurrent falls. This recurrent falls, it could be PSP here. It can progress, I told you now. Or even autonomic neuropathy also. So the progression of the disease is independent of this drug. So they can develop a progression of disease without this. Okay. So initial therapy levodopa prevents the development of recurrent falls is false actually. So this is also false. This is also false. This is the correct answer. So levodopa induced dyskinesia is more common in advanced Parkinson's disease compared to early PD. I told you because I told you why on and off phenomena. You understood? On and off phenomena. And deep brain stimulation is used in a medically refractory PDs. I told that also. Long-acting dopa agonists have a less dyskinesia. So as this is correct answer. What is long-acting? I don't know why you written that. Anyway, this is a correct sentence also. If you give long-acting now, this is peaking will not be there. it will be at least there is a plateauing. So dyskinesia chances are less. Long acting dopamine, dopagonist. Non-dopaminergic system and sign, non-dopaminergic symptoms signs will not be like freezing. That is actually patients can develop freezing, autonomic dysfunction, progress in spite of levodopa. Okay, I told you this. The other non-dopaminergic fibers. See, basal ganglia is not only dependent on striatal negative fibers. It has got cholinergic fibers there. It has got even other fibers also will come there. Glutamate fibers. So many things are there. Striatal negative fibers, its influence can be checked with levodopa. But other cholinergic fibers, other fibers which will be manipulating this basal ganglia, if they are at fault, this freezing, all this can happen. This is involvement of autonomic neuropathy, of course. They can still progress. I told you that. These non-dopaminergic symptoms are primary source of disability, and this can't be prevented with available treatment these days. Somehow we can get away with deep brain stimulation, control patients who are getting on and off phenomena that can be managed with a deep brain stimulation. But this other source involvement, autonomic neuropathy and other dementia, all these things cannot be prevented with levodopa. They still prevent. I mean progress. Sorry. No, let us see this. 70-year-old male with a Parkinson's disease. Yes, anything?
Sir, previous question, sir.
Hello, students. What? Tell me, ask.
Sir, that dopa agonist means these are bromocriptine and all those drugs, no, sir? Is levodopa is
No,
also
they are not used. See, this bromocriptine on long-term use has got cardiac wall and pulmonary fibrosis issues. Nobody use them for long-term.
Sir, my question is levodopa is also a
They are
dopamine
agonist receptor agonist there. Bromocriptine, yeah. They are dopamine receptor agonist. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
These dopamine receptor agonists, the bromocriptine is not used. One more drug I'm not able to pick up. I forgot. There's one more drug which is used as a dopamine receptor agonist for Parkinsonism. That is less potent. I am not able to recollect the name. I had told that in the last class. Right now, I'm not able to recollect. But bromocriptine, which you mentioned, that tablet is not used on long-term basis. If you use that for long-term basis, the patient will develop pulmonary fibrosis and cardiac wall involvement. So don't use bromocriptine, a dopamine receptor agonist. One more drug is there which has been prepared for sake of Parkinsonism to be used on long-term basis. I am not able to get the name right now. I had told that in the last class also. Okay. What? Sarala, what something?
Something benzhexidine
Hello?
drug. Sir, benzhexidine
Yes, find out.
something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I'm not able to recollect anyway. I'll tell you, I'll refer back and tell you. And they are not very potent drugs. They're in fact used along with levodopa again to get the benefit. Okay. 70 years old male with a Parkinson's disease presented to the ED. After sudden fall, the patient was on treatment with aspirin for atrial fibrillation. The image shows this image. What is the diagnosis? Hydrocephalus, pneumocephalus, intraventricular bleed, subarachnoid hemorrhage. What is the diagnosis for students?
Subarachnoid hemorrhage.
Subarachnoid. Last?
Sir, intravenous bleed.
Rest. Intravenous bleed. Others?
Sir, intraventricular
See, in a
bleed.
CT scan, the bleed will be white or black?
Black.
In CT scan, The bleed is white. Usually white inside the parenchyma at least. Okay. Even subarachnoid space, it will be white only. I'll show that. This is actually air here. This is all air. Air will be black. So you can see this nematocysts. These are all nematocysts. These patients have Parkinson's, they're prone to develop this. This is a typical finding. With repeated falls, if they get into, they'll develop this nemocephalus. This black thing now, what you're seeing is all nemocephalus. Here, all these things. It is a nemocephalus. I'll show you your favorite. Now this is intraventricular bleed. Okay, this is a bleed. And see, subarachnoid space is, it will go deep into the what? All fissures. What is this fissure? Central fissure, Sylvian fissure it is. This one. You can see the bleed, subarachnoid space. What is subarachnoid space? It is between two meninges. Which are those? Pia mater and
Dura.
Arachnoid.
arachnoid mater. Subarachnoid should be below the arachnoid mater, above the pia mater. This pia mater goes down into the grooves and come. Pia mater. Where the arachnoid mater goes only up here. It doesn't go down into the grooves. So the bleeding occurs here. You can hear it. These things are inside the groove. You can see here. This is the bleeding. Okay. This is subarachnoid bleed here. Of course, there is a connection between subarachnoid space and the ventricle. The ventricle bleed also can extend. They can extend the ventricle. Okay. This is a case of, this is subarachnoid hemorrhage. This is intraventricular hemorrhage. This is hydrocephalus. This is dilatation of the ventricles. You can see this. That is there.
Yes.
You see more images of this. So they are asking questions on image based. You got to see a couple more images in the book. Standard books also you see. Google them and see more. Then you get more acquainted. Try to find out how these images are being read. Even this you can see here. There is a subarachnoid space here. You can see bleed here. And I have taken class on this subarachnoid hemorrhage, intraventricular hemorrhage, all those things. They are there in the YouTube channel. You can check them also. Features of Parkinsonism include all except mask-like face. Do you get mask-like face in Parkinsonism? How many of you disagree?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We get mask like face.
You disagree
Mask-like.
or agree? You get
We
or
agree,
no?
sir.
Agree.
Agree.
Yes,
You
sir.
agree.
We agree.
Good, very good. Okay, very good. What about rigidity?
Yes,
We
sir.
get, sir.
You got rigidity or spasticity here?
Rigidity, sir.
Rigidity.
What is spasticity? What do you understand by spasticity?
Upper motor
Tell me what.
neuron.
Yeah,
Cogwheel.
spasticity. See, how many? If you have got nail cutter, how many have nail cutter? Nail cutter. Have you tried opening your beer bottle with nail cutter? That when you try to open, when you open that, whatever thing, the thing you use to open the beer bottle from the nail cutter, initially there is a resistance, but later on it goes off. With that, you can open the cap of the beer bottle. Clasp knife rigidity, it's also called. The resistance is only initial. That is spasticity. Whereas rigidity is continuous throughout the movement, or also called as lead pipe. If you try to bend a lead pipe, the hypertonia is continuous. Some background noise, can that be checked in? Oh, good, very thank you. Lead pipe rigidity. In fact, in Parkinsonism, we can call cogwheel. What is cogwheel? Wheel, which other cogs, na?
Yes, sir.
Wheel,
Rigidity.
cogwheel.
With rigidity.
And things move like this. Things move. This is cogwheel. It moves with the brakes. That is because hypertonia or rigidity superimposed tremors. Rigidity superimposed tremors will give cogwheel rigidity. Because in Parkinsonism, there is a tremor as well as rigidity. You get cogwheel rigidity. Because of that, both are there. That is rigidity. What is the intention tremors? They are there. Are they there? What do you understand by intention tremors?
When you try to do something or when you try to hold something, then there is tremors, like holding something.
What is that? Okay. At the end of the moment, now you start getting tremors actually, basically. When you try to touch something, now you're trying to touch it. Then you start getting tremors. But there is something called action tremors or postural tremors. When you make a movement, you try to open your arms or hand, outstretched hand, you start getting tremors. They are called as action tremors. When you try to point something, hold something, if you get tremors, that is, as you said, it is called intention tremors. Where you get that? Cerebellum. Yeah, cerebellum. You get intention tremors. And because of these tremors, patient can have past pointing. They'll go over cross the lesion and go. Past pointing. Intention tremors. Resting tremors, yeah, you get here. Parkinsonism. Flaccidity. Do you get flaccidity here?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Where do you get flaccidity? You get flaccidity in LM and cerebellum. Okay. LM and lesion, you can get flaccidity. Classically, it is lower motor neuron involvement. Even in the cerebellum involvement, there can be flaccidity or hypotonia. We could better to call it as hypotonia. Flaccidity is a result term for LM better. Okay. A lower motor neuron. Upper motor neuron spasticity and extrapyramidal system involvement is rigidity. Cerebellum hypotonia. So spasticity you don't get intention tremors. So these two should be the answer. Intention tremors and flaccidity should be the answer for this question. Now something about hyperkinetic movements. See, the tremors means what are tremors? Rhythmic oscillation of the body parts due to intermittent muscle contraction. So you can get the intermittent muscle contraction will give movement. Dystonia, as I already discussed, is involuntary patterned, sustained, or repetitive muscle contraction. Arthritosis is small, slow distal breathing movements. Slow distal movement. Involvement is involuntary movement with the propensity to affect the arm and hands. This is called arthritosis. In fact, it is also a type of dystonia. Some people call it as. This represents a form of dystonia, that is repetitive movement only with the increased mobility. But the mobility here is more, whereas in dystonia, the frequency of the mobility is slower. Where it is here, mobility is more and more faster in arthritosis. It's a type of dystonia. You can look at it like a dystonia. Whereas that this repetitive movement is much slower, where this is much faster. Arthrosis. Chorea, as you know, rapid, semi-purposeful, graceful, dance-like, non-patterned involuntary movements involving the distal proximal everything group of muscles, and if it involves the proximal part, it is called as balism. So these are all choreas. And what is myoclonus? The jerky movements, sudden jerky movements. In fact, myoclonus is a cortical thing. It is a cortical thing, not basal ganglia. Even the sticks. These are all cortical. At least myoclonus is cortical. It is a type of epilepsy. Epilepsy is a cortical. Dystonia, arthrosis, chorea, tremors, they are not cortical events. They are basal extrapyramidal. Okay, you should know that. There is something called juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. I discussed because that is a cortical. Because these hyperkinetic movements can be done because these basal ganglia diseases later on they can involve cortex. Even in Alzheimer's disease, some patients can develop convulsions. Because later on, when the cortex is severely damaged, they can, those plaques, neuroplaques, they can irritate the cortex and cause convulsions. So these are all, the myoclonus can be there, but even damaging there also. Even some of the disease. Tics are it's a habit-like things. Brief, repeated, stereotyped muscles contractions that can often be suppressed with the short time. These can be simple or involve the single muscle Anybody is trying to join? No, okay. Okay, that's about tics. Now we'll see about tremors already discussed. Rest, posture, kinetic or intention tremors can come here. Even action tremors are actually posture tremors are similar. So Parkinson's disease has got both resting tremors, essential tremors, and postural tremors. Cerebral tremors will get a kinetic or intention tremors, cerebral involvement. Essential tremors, these are you can see many old people be having that. You must have seen many of your elders in your home could be suffering from this. You must have seen that. Now high frequency, they have got 6 to 9, 10 hertz. Upper expert is bilateral symmetrical. Yeah, something important, bilateral symmetrical, essential tremors. Very rarely asymmetric. Postural action tremors can be there. Intention tremors in severe cases also can come. And head is involved in 30%. You can see old Aji in drama, they will always old people in any drama, especially in kids school dramas, that actor will always be moving the head up and down to mimic these essential tremors. You have seen that, and their voice will be shaky. They show this all these things. Even if you have not seen a patient, at least in a kids drama, at least you people when you are doing your dramas in your school days, you must have done this. All this showing up essential tremors and behaving like a old person. Which of the following is a earlier symptom of Parkinsonism? Tell me. I do not want to give you answer. Tell this. Hello, students.
Bradykinesia.
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 Bradykinesia. No, it is actual tremors. Tremors is earlier. Bradykinesia will come later. Yeah, actually, initially, when I was doing MD, way back in 99, we used to give, not levodopa first. We used to try with trifeniadil. That is an anticholinergic drug we used to give to reduce tremors only. Later on, when the patient develops bradykinesia, we used to add up levodopa. That's what we used to do then. But now this trifeniadil, why am I not able to pronounce it now? This anticholinergic drug is outdated. We are still only starting with levodopa. Now the neurologists are preferring levodopa as a first drug only. Even they used to tell give amantadine, it has got some neuroprotective effect. The progression of the disease of Parkinsonism can be halted. All those theories were there way back in 99. Now all those theories are outdated. Now they're not telling that those drugs don't give any much benefit. It's pointless to give the patient quality of life. Give them levodopa early only now. This what concept was there. If you start levodopa earlier, the patient will progress fast. That question was you got just now. That is because it is a reflection of the old theory. Okay, new theory is levodopa doesn't progress the disease. It progresses irrespective of it. Okay, tremors is the first sign of Parkinsonism usually. Elements causing Parkinsonism: manganese, copper, iron, lead. Which one of them?
Copper, sir, copper.
Copper.
Manganese.
Copper. Wilson's.
Copper.
Have
Manganese.
some copper means
Copper is
Wilson. Yeah, it can cause. I got it. The way you are putting it now, because I told you that. Now that copper, there it is a copper metabolism. Like that, even iron also can cause Parkinsonism. But as a toxin, that is because on the body. But manganese as a poison can cause Parkinsonism. Okay. Even iron can also cause like that. Now, secondary Parkinsonism are drug induced. Tumors. Secondary Parkinsonism drug induced. Just now I told you the drug used in Huntington's chorea can cause secondary Parkinsonism. Tumors, infections, like a CFD. What is Creutzfeldt Jakob or CZD or what is it? That disease can also cause vascular, normal pressure hydrocephalus, trauma, liver failure. Huh? It can cause liver failure, Wilson disease. Huh? Even without Wilson disease, liver failure alone, it can cause secondary Parkinsonism. Patients of before having something hepatic encephalopathy, they can present with neurological manifestations sometimes. Apart from your flapping tremors, they can develop these tremors and also cause they can have rigidity, and before going into complete encephalopathy, the patients of liver failure can come to you with neurological manifestations. They can come without Wilson's also. And toxins here, carbon monoxide, manganese, MPTP, this is a heroin contamination it is. Cyanide, hexane, methanol, all these things can cause secondary Parkinsonism. Anosmia is an early clinical feature of Alzheimer's disease, Huntington's chorea, Parkinson's disease. Actually, all of them can cause anosmia. Anosmia can be caused by all of them. CNS causes of anosmia, head injury and damage to olfactory filaments. Cranial surgery, surgeon will damage them. Subarachnoid hemorrhage, meningitis, toxics. See, levodopa is also there here. Organic solvents, aminoglycosides, tetracycline, corticosteroids. Corticosteroids also can cause anosmia. Methotrexate, these are the drugs. Thiamine deficiency and renal and thyroid deficiency, cirrhosis, renal failure, vaginal granulomatosis, these tumors, craniopharyngioma, degenerative diseases, temporal lobe epilepsy, because olfactory is there only. That's what. Malingering, drama, they can also cause anosmia. In a patient of Parkinson's disease with intractable tremors, the most preferred site of DBS or deep, I told you this, brain stimulation. Answer this. I have told this. Students, are you there?
Globus pallidus interna.
What is the choice here? Externa is there, but
Yeah, sir. Interna.
interna is not there. Then think of something else, na?
Yes.
It is externa here. If it was interna, I would have agreed. But the choice is given as externa. Can you do putamen?
Putamen.
Subthalamic nucleus, substantia nigra.
Putamen.
Not putamen. It is subthalamic nucleus. See, this is how the stimulation is being done. They'll put in the chest. They'll put this stimulator here. They'll take a wire subcutaneously. Okay, subcutaneous tract. They'll take it from the brain. They'll go and put it in the stimulator deep into the brain, and it is for stimulating subthalamic nucleus or globus pallidus interna. And this is the best actually. Subthalamics can be tried. Why? Deep brain stimulation indications. Severe tremors with all drug combinations, long acting, you are done in a patient of Parkinsonism. You have tried all drugs and all, nothing is happening. Then think of DBS. Levodopa induced motor complications that cannot be satisfactorily controlled. It is only for lower dopa, not giving your benefit, not for otherwise. Okay, you have tried to control bradykinesia and you have tried to improve tremors, and those things you have tried with the levodopa. The patient is symptomatic still, then either he is going for on or off phenomena, then you try to think of DBS. But if the patient has dementia, if the patient is having autonomic neuropathy, those things, by giving DBS, he won't benefit. Okay. DBS of subthalamic nucleus or globus pallidus interna. Actually, globus pallidus interna has got a lesser chance of patient going for depression, and chances of suicide are less. So, subthalamic nucleus instead, wiser to go for globus pallidus interna. These are some clinical things which are clinical trials, recent happenings. GPI stimulation is better than subthalamic stimulation. Wheelchair sign is seen in where you get wheelchair sign. Students, patient who is suppressed. Huh? Duchess muscular dystrophy. What is this? Calf
So
muscles
autosomal
hypertrophy.
dominant. Autosomal dominant.
Yeah, autosomal dominant with the calf muscles hypertrophy. Baker's dystrophy, you won't get wheelchair here. This is the correct answer actually, Parkinsonism. Because the patients of Parkinsonism, due to hypertonia, they will have bent here, spine. The knee also is bent. The arm will be like this. Like this, they will be all flexed. When it becomes severe, this is a wheelchair sign. So actually now what is wheelchair sign is a patient who is on levodopa. How it has come, I'll tell you. Levodopa. When the patient on levodopa is there, when the drug level in the body comes down, he'll become frozen. I mean, he'll become wheelchair. You give him levodopa, if the drug level goes up very fast, he'll start having dyskinesias. So these things can swing. Wheelchair to hyperkinetic movements. Bradykinesia, hyperkinesia. Like that. Things can happen with levodopa. So one at the extreme part of this one, they can have wheelchair sign. Levodopa is a contraindicated. That I'm telling about an advanced case of Parkinsonism, not initial stage. Okay. Levodopa is contraindicated in where? Malignant melanoma. Okay. Because it can, the melanoma can worsen with the levodopa. In Parkinsonism, what is not present? Tremors at rest, past pointing, akinesia, rigidity. Simple question.
Fast point.
Past pointing, sir.
Yeah. Very good. Past pointing is a sign of cerebellum.
Cerebellar.
Cerebellum, yeah. Cerebellar sign. Very good. Which of the following pattern of blood flow is likely in Huntington's disease? Hyperemia of the basal ganglia with reduced blood flow to other areas of the brain. So Huntington disease is a disease of the basal ganglia now. Okay. Blood flow is more here according to him. Now, bilateral reduced blood flow to caudate nucleus. This is a reduce blood flow. Reduce blood flow. Bilateral. That's the second choice. Bilateral reduction of blood flow starting from the occipital cortex, spreading to the anteriorly. Decrease blood flow to the temporal lobes. Which one do you think? If it is a blood flow disease of the caudate basal ganglion, yeah, this one,
Second.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
There is a reduction of the blood flow. Caudate nucleus is the cause of Huntington. Hold on a second, I'll just drink water. Bilateral reduction of the blood flow in the caudate nucleus is the correct answer. We'll see Huntington disease once more. I made double slides here. Okay, anyway. Autosomal dominant, I told you, high penetration. With the CAG repeats, I told this also. With this in the chromosome number 4. Onset, I told you again, 25 to 45 years. Chorea is with oculomotor and gait disturbances. And chorea is replaced by dystonia later. Bradykinesia, myoclonus dementia. Spasticity can also come. See, rigidity, spasticity, everything can come here. See now. In this case. Because when it involves the pyramidals, dementia comes with spasticity also add up. Westphal variant, young patient. Westphal variant, young with Parkinson's like feature, suicidal and depression, aggressive behavior can be there. Huntington disease, even it comes with much more younger. They have aggressive behavior with the Parkinson's like feature can come. Neuroendocrine, I discussed. Tetrabenazine, I told you, this is a drug to be for reduction of chorea, but it can cause secondary Parkinsonism. Huntington disease involves striatum. It is striatum means caudate nucleus and putamen it involves. Okay, atrophy of the caudate nucleus is more compared to the what? Putamen. So because caudate nucleus forms the inferior border here, inferior border of the lateral ventricles, the lateral ventricles are dilated. You can see, okay? The lateral ventricles are dilated because of that caudate nucleus here. Because the caudate nucleus head will shrink, the ventricles will dilate. And dilatation of the lateral ventricle have happened. SPECT decrease uptake of caudate nucleus. That means because by SPECT actually depends on the blood flow. So if the blood flow is decreased, the spectral uptake, caudate nucleus will take less amount uptake. Uptake will less. That is SPECT. Cortical atrophy later says that causes actual dementia later on stages. Huntington disease, dilatation of the ventricle, caudate nucleus decreased blood flow, and also the dilatation of the lateral ventricles. Findings. All of the following are known predisposing factors for Alzheimer's disease: Down syndrome, low sodium diet, smoking, female sex.
Female
What is
sex.
correct?
Female
Except
sex.
all of the following are except it is sorry.
Females are more prone than males.
Yeah, I forgot. See, this is a longly typed it. Except. It is except. Wrong typing. The question is all of the following are known predisposing factors for Alzheimer's disease except it is. So Down syndrome, patients dementia very well. Okay, apart from cardiac disease, these people are known to develop dementia, Alzheimer's disease. Low sodium diet can also cause Alzheimer's disease actually. Smoking, actually sort of protection it is.
No.
Don't tell the patients, they'll die
Protection.
because of lung cancer. Smoking is a sort of protection for Alzheimer's disease, but don't tell this to patient because you may prevent his Alzheimer's, but they'll kill him by lung cancer. Okay. And female sex. One thing now, this Alzheimer's disease, I think so. I made a slide on that. Yeah. Alzheimer's disease increases with old age. If there's a family history positive, female sex, high risk, head injury, concussion in the younger age group, the patients are prone to develop Alzheimer's later. Low education status. If the patient is well trained with a complex language, written, reading, and all that, these patients are less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Of course, Ronald Reagan also got Alzheimer's. That's a different issue, but chances are less. Who is Ronald Reagan? Who is Ronald Reagan? Students, he was a president of America. Okay. Then aluminum, mercury, and virus infections can also cause Alzheimer's disease. Diabetes, increase homocysteine levels, increased cholesterol and hypertension can also cause Alzheimer's. And if the person is taking low fruits and vegetables, can also cause Alzheimer's disease. So these are the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease, not smoking.
Excuse me, sir.
Not what?
So what
Tell
did
me.
you tell smoking? I could not understand.
Smoking is not a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. This is a correct sentence. Okay, it is not a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. The patients who are continuing to smoke, Alzheimer's,
Lower the
continue to smoke, they did not progress that badly actually in some of the studies.
sir, does it
No
lower the
doctor-
risk of Alzheimer's?
What?
Sir,
What
does
is it?
smoking lower the risk? Sir, my question is, does
Something
smoking
like
lower
that.
the
It is
risk
not
of
approved.
Alzheimer's?
Don't tell that patient, it is not confirmed. Some of the trials, one of my teachers used to tell me that. If the patient of Alzheimer's is smoking, don't talk about it, keep quiet. That's what they used to tell me. This much I can tell you. But no doctor prescribes smoking for Alzheimer's. Because at least they'll say it is not a risk factor for Alzheimer's worsening. Okay. But he may die because of coronary disease. He may die because of your lung cancer. All those things can come up and that can kill him. So Alzheimer's disease may not progress, but other diseases will kill.
Okay, sir.
Got it? Like
Yes,
that.
sir.
Yes, sir.
It's not advisable. At least that's why now the question has come. Smoking is not a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. Huh?
How
That's
can
why, in a way, the females, it's not correct. I just want to make a joke. Females don't smoke much, na? So probably they get Alzheimer's. I don't smoke. I'm not encouraging smoking. Now, you people who are smoking here don't think they are great people now. You may get other diseases. It's not this way also. Females, because they don't smoke, they get Alzheimer's. It's not that correct. Huh? Just a mnemonic you can remember. For that.
Sir, how can low educational people get Alzheimer's?
Yeah, it is association has been seen. The mechanism, I don't know actually. I don't think so. The people know about it, but mechanism, those people who have actually now the people who kept on see any person, the dementia is less in an individual. See, you can see a person in your own home. The person when he retires, he start degenerating after retirement. You should keep keep on doing something. Otherwise, the disease will start. Always the brain will start atrophy more. I really don't know the mechanism, but the high education people tend to work more longer time compared to low education people. Maybe high education people take care of this diet and all that better than the low education. I really don't know why, but education has been shown to reduce Alzheimer's. There are
Okay,
many compounding factors here. Huh? Compounding factors here.
okay, okay, sir.
In a long term studies now, when you say there definitely a person who is well read and person who is unread, there's a difference in lifestyle itself. So these things could be contributing. This whatever variable you are checking in, they to really know the difference will be very difficult. But however, it has been seen that the higher education people are less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. That could be because of other diseases also, but keep your brain active. That is one thing I can tell to reduce the progression of Alzheimer's. Hmm? This much is acceptable. Hmm?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, that's why. What?
Got it. I
What
got
is
it.
it?
I got it, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Not seen in Alzheimer's diseases, cerebral atrophy, ventricular shrinkage, sundowning, apraxia. Do you get cerebral atrophy? Definitely yes, na. Dementia will come then. See, there is a cerebral atrophy, ventricles should dilate actually. That space is taken care of ventricles actually. Sundowning means actually na, these patients of Alzheimer's, they are always in confusion. When something is, morning happens and evening comes, they are more disturbed. They don't know whether to sleep or to get up. That's the biggest problem for them. So because of that, they are almost always depressed. Huh? Depressed because of this. Apraxia is it's a part. I told you how memory, then apraxia, all those things progresses. Hmm? So ventricular dilatation is seen rather. Hmm? Because cortex is gone, ventricular dilate, the space is taken care of. Okay. MRI finding in Alzheimer's disease. Hippocampal atrophy leading to dilatation of ventricles. Hippocampus is medial structure. So if it dilates, if it atrophies, the ventricles will definitely become more prominent dilated. Depression leads to sundowning. I told you this. And mnemonic of Alzheimer's, amnesia, apraxia, anosognosia. What is it? What is this? Aphasia. Aphasia, you people know. This is a disorder of language, not speech. Anosognosia, they can't recognize the person. Some patient I heard, I read some blog postings where a husband used to go and meet his wife who is admitted in a long-term disability center who is suffering from Alzheimer's. Every day he used to go and meet her, and she used to never recognize him, because of anosognosia. That's how. That was some stories and blog post I have read. There was patient, wife, no, if she was suffering from Alzheimer's disease, husband is to still go and meet her every day and take care of her. But she never recognized him. Who is he? Probably like that, something like that. So that's how you can remember this. This is a part of Alzheimer's disease. That story I told you because of that. amnesia, apraxia, anosognosia, the aphasia. These all things are there for Alzheimer's disease. I don't know whether it's a read movie or where, I don't know. Maybe movie. I don't know. I'm not able to recollect. All are seen in Alzheimer's disease, except again aphasia, acalculia, apraxia, and subgnosia. Luckily, they can calculate well. These people, the calculation is good. But even then, of course, calculation doesn't mean is good. Doesn't mean that they take good financial decisions. Because of their aggression, depression, all that, they'll mess up here also. Only calculation they can do. 2 plus 2, they'll tell 4. That's all. But other judgmental things, they'll not be good. So they'll develop aphasia, apraxia, and anosognosia. But acalculia is not a sign of Alzheimer's disease. That doesn't mean they are good. Finance cannot be given in their hand. So Alzheimer's disease, language disturbances can be there. They can develop apraxia. What is apraxia? Inability to perform learned or familiar movement on command, even though the command is understood and there is a willingness. One thing, there should be willingness to perform the movement. That is apraxia. So, and agnosia is failure to recognize. They can't recognize. Disturbance in planning, execution, all be there. They're part of Alzheimer's disease. All the following are true about Alzheimer's disease, except how many of you are there? How many of you are left? 11. Okay, 11 people are there. Good. Okay, all of the following are true about Alzheimer's disease, except number of senile plaques correlate with the age. Underlying tau protein, it is except just see. Underlying tau protein suggests neurodegeneration. Number of neurofibrillary tangles is associated with the severity of dementia. Extracellular inclusions can be found in absence of intracellular inclusions. What is incorrect in this? First of all, it is intracellular disease. Yeah, this is the intracellular disease. So extracellular inclusions cannot come without intracellular disease. Okay, so this is a incorrect thing. This is the answer. So number of senile plaques that can see even in normal people can have senile plaques. They may not have Alzheimer's disease. Okay, one thing you should know. Underlying tau protein suggests a neurotic. See, tau proteins are in fact they say it is a protective reaction of the cell for this disease. These proteins are present there. Okay, tau proteins are there inside the cell. They in fact they come means there is a neurodegeneration. That's why they come. Maybe to protect. Never know. So that means if there's a tau protein present, neurodegeneration has started like that. Number of neurofibrillary tangles is associated with the severity. If the neurofibrillary tangles are more, the severity of the dementia is more. That's all. This is the correct. This is wrong. AD pathology, I think so. I put the same slide here. Neurofibrillary tangles and neuronal loss are alterations. Neuronal loss alteration are correlated with the AD severity. Senile plaques, they are senile and normally present. Tau proteins are intracellular. Not extracellular. Huntington's chorea is caused to mutation in proteins. Huntington's is seen.
Fourth.
Yeah, good.
Gap repetition.
Trinucleate. I told you that. Generation to generation, the number of trinucleotide repetition will increase, and the grandfather and the grandson, there will be early onset. In fact, you can say grandfather and grandson may die together because early onset of disease in grandson. Just kidding. Huntington's disease. Mutation in Huntington's gene increase. Same thing. Mutation increase in CAG repeats lead to this. Reversible dementia is seen in Wilson's disease, Huntington's disease, Alzheimer's disease, myxedema. Which of them is a reversible disease in this?
Wilson's.
Wilson's is not reversible. Myxedema is reversible. Myxedema, you give thyroxine patient will all right now. You got eltroxin supplement very cheaply available. Probably I think so it is 40 to 50 rupees one bottle will come. Eltroxin, myxedema is a reversible dementia. These are all, these don't reverse, they progress. Hmm? So the causes of reversible dementia: hypothyroidism, thiamine deficiency, B12 deficiency. Pure vegetarians, they can develop B12 deficiency. Normal pressure hydrocephalus. You do shunting, they'll okay. Chronic subdural hematoma can also improve. Chronic infection treated properly, the brain abscess. These are all reversible dementias causes. Others are not reversible. Sundowning, yeah, that side is coming. Yes, I was telling about. They are confusion here. Sundowning, a group of behavior occurring in some older patients with or without dementia at the time of nightfall or night set. You must have seen your old grannies complaining they can't sleep in the early and they cannot. They'll get up early in the morning. All those things you have seen. They are always confused when to sleep and when to get up. This is called a sundowning, and that is more commonly seen in dementias. And that is because depression, all these things will start. Anxiety, agitation, psychomotor, all of that. Okay. Thank you. Anything you want to ask, students?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. No.
Thank you, sir.
Okay then. If you want, don't. If you any doubts, you ask me.
So I have a doubt, sir.
Okay, tell me.
So 1 minute. Actually, I didn't understand about DBS.
DBS.
Yes,
Deep brain stimulation. See,
yes.
by stimulating the globus pallidus interna or subthalamic nucleus, in a patient of Parkinsonism, we can reduce tremors and tremors. Basically, we can reduce tremors here. We can only reduce tremors. So to reduce tremors, we give, that is, we can do with even with levodopa. But in a patient who has progressed a lot, the levodopa will not be giving benefit. In such a patient, we stimulate this globus pallidus interna and what is it? And also your subthalamic nucleus. Subthalamic nucleus. This was done accidental surgery. This has happened because of accident surgery. They found out this. They are doing it now. To give benefit only for these two. But the Parkinsonism also affects, not Parkinsonism, the pathology, etiology, that Lewy bodies, they don't only damage striatonigral fibers, they do damage many more fibers apart from striatonigral fibers. Nigra fiber. Apart from Nigra striatal fibers, they do damage many more fibers. That will progress irrespective of it. Okay. So DBS is only for prevention of refractory tremors only. Anything? Any still confusion?
No, sir. Understood, sir.
Okay. You just see the last video and read also along with that.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, sir.